From the Russ Center for Media in downtown Cape Girardeau, welcome to Focus on Southeast, a program on issues, events, and people impacting Southeast Missouri State University. I'm Dan Woods with KRCU Public Radio. Later on today's show, we will be talking with Dan Presson. He's Assistant Vice President of Economic and Workforce Development. We'll be discussing early stage business boot camps, Scrum Master Certification, the Career Expo, and more. Our first guest today is Paul Sharpe. He is the new Dean of Kent Library here at SEMO. Paul, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me, Dan.
So give us first your background first, if you would.
So I've been working in libraries for the past 6 years, something along those lines. Making my way across the country, if you will. Started with my graduate degree in Denver, worked at the University of Denver, and then on to Houston, and then University of Missouri St. Louis. My last position was my first in administration as dean, which is at the University of Texas, Rio Grande Valley. And after 9 years there, I wanted to come back home. So Missouri is home. Grew up here originally, and so far Cape Girardeau is a great fit. SEMO's been excellent to me, and really looking forward to making an impact here.
Well, cool. So what are some of the things that drew you back here to the university when you looked at the job opportunity here?
So my wife and I are both Midwesterners. That's probably the start of it. She's from Iowa, which I don't hold against her whatsoever, but I grew up in Northeast Missouri in a small town, and it's the age-old story of aging parents and reconnecting with family and trying to kind of get a feel for something that's familiar. So Texas was a great experience, but again, a Missouri boy at heart. So here I am back here trying to blend back in.
Yeah, I'm one too, so I completely understand that. So talk about the staff. How many folks are there working at the library here at SEMO?
Oh, roughly, I want to say 20, 25 or thereabouts. A mixture of library faculty and staff. And that's not counting student employees. But and I'd say it's a good mix of people who have been here several years and then some that are fairly new.
You know, in an age now, and I think I told you when we talked earlier that, I went to SEMO, and back then we had to go to the library for any kind of research we wanted to do. And of course, with the internet, things have changed a lot. So what role do libraries, from your perspective, have today?
Libraries, even though most people, and even students and faculty, don't always realize that the things that they're doing, even on the internet, which we think is the World Wide Web, even that little bit of research they might do on campus, in their office, whatever, it's impacted, and the library's influence bleeds into that. A lot of the contracts that we have with various publishers and databases, journals, the like, a lot of that is automatically something that connects to those researchers if they're on campus, usually through the IP range, without getting too technical. But essentially, the things that they're able to find online, which they think is happenstance, some of that is actually the influence of the library. So it's well beyond books at this point. Obviously, a lot of electronic resources. And for me, in librarianship, it's really about access at this point. It's about making sure that no matter where people are situated, on campus or off, here in Missouri or worldwide, that they have access to our resources if they should have access to those resources, of course. But for our students and for our faculty who travel, we want to make sure that they have that gateway anywhere they need it.
I know you're still fairly new here at the university, but based on what you've seen so far, what are some of the goals that you sort of have in your mind for Kent Library in the next year or two?
So I'd say one of those goals, we're seeing a lot of activity on campus in terms of remodeling, some demolition. The Dearmont building right next door is being taken down over the summer, we hope, knock on wood. And with that new health sciences building that's coming up next door, we're hoping to attract a little bit more traffic. We're central to campus, yet there are a lot of buildings that are kind of growing on the outskirts of the campus. And so bringing that traffic back in is helpful and important. We have a lot of services within the building, which makes us a good one-stop hub for most students and faculty to come in and get things, use services that they need. So that's one of the goals, is to try to increase that traffic flow. Another for me, which is kind of near and dear to my heart, something that I worked on in Texas, was the expansion of open educational resources, also known as OER. These are materials that are developed usually by faculty, and they replace textbooks. There's something that they can utilize the resources of the library and other materials that are widely, openly available, open access, and use those and synthesize those into something that allows them to teach the same material, the same things they'd like to teach, but without a textbook cost. This is the library's way, to me, of addressing some of the high costs of education these days. And it's something that we did wonders with at my last institution in Texas, and I'm hoping to bring some of that here. Soon we'll be hiring for a position that's focused on this, that can work directly with our teaching faculty and work with them. And it's not something that's a mandate. In other words, we don't force that upon anyone. We really do believe in academic freedom, but we want to give them options. We want to be able to say, you could do this, and it's simpler, and maybe it's cheaper. Well, maybe not always simpler, but it's cheaper. It's something that's affordable for our students, and it helps them. It's another step towards them being prepared for the future and with less debt.
So do you want to get more faculty engaged with the library and realizing how you all can maybe partner? Is this a part of that, perhaps?
Yes. Oh, that's absolutely it. It's something that's readily available, and it's, for us in the library, I see us as serving the entire community, particularly the SEMO community on campus, and making sure that we can help facilitate the creation of those materials. And then, there are various ways within the state of Missouri to archive those and make those available and reuse them, remix them, repurpose them in different ways. If things change along the way, then you can always tweak it a little bit and then use it again. And like I said, it's the affordability portion of that is what's really important.
That's great. So for those who may not know, talk about some of the assets that are at the library, some of the things that are there that are available to the SEMO community and the community at large.
So, in addition to a lot of good real estate, space for study, space for quiet study, we have various collections. Our Special Collections and Archives has, a renowned Faulkner collection, William Faulkner's works, which includes some of his personal effects and many of his books and materials, and the notes and preparation by one of the biographers that wrote some of the seminal works about William Faulkner. We're one of 4 institutions, one of 4 libraries in the United States that has such a deep collection that's dedicated to Faulkner. And that's an area that draws in researchers from across the country and around the world. We've had some from as far as Japan that come in and utilize our materials. So that's something that's a bit undiscovered. I know that currently we don't have a campus researcher or anyone on faculty that's focused on that area. That might enhance that a little bit. We'd love someone to come in and work with that and further kind of display and provide better access to those materials. But our staff in Special Collections and Archives, our faculty and staff that we have been excellent in curating that and providing that access to the community.
Well, and to say only one of 4 libraries, I mean, that's quite a feather in the cap, isn't it?
It is. It's something important.
Multimedia Lab, talk about that a bit, because that's a very interesting space that you have there.
Yes, the Multimedia Lab is something that we think is poised to kind of explode and expand a bit. We're hoping to expand staffing there so that we can provide a bit more outreach. It provides one of a couple of spaces on campus that will allow students to come in and create projects, multimedia projects, be able to expand upon their work or turn their work into something that's broader and a little more up for the times, convenient to the times in terms of making a splash or possibly incorporated into like a digital resume or things of that sort. It's a space that has I believe the president, Dr. Vargas, used it for the Giving Day.
Okay.
He used our studio space to provide that because we had a teleprompter and drop screens and everything that made it convenient. So we're looking to get more engagement with our students, and I think with some outreach to faculty to help them maybe embed some of that into their curriculum. We could also have another way in which they can be partnering with us. They can teach these students what it is that they need to have the advantage going forward.
Yeah.
And so it's something that's ready to blossom.
One thing before we run out of time is we talked about this on the phone before we get ready for this TV show.
Sure.
The impact of the pandemic on libraries. Just talk about how that changed how people are using libraries now.
Oh my goodness. So, and of course I was not here, but in Missouri at the time, but it changed the way people study. Obviously, when everything shut down and our campuses all shut down, our libraries shut down, it sent students kind of scrambling. They started looking for other places. Libraries like to talk a lot about being a third space, which is not work and not school necessarily, but it's a place that they can hang out. That went away. That's something that we lost during the pandemic, but it was also not a study space that was reliable enough, even for coming in, printing papers, Wi-Fi, all of those necessary things. Right. And we're still not seeing the numbers come back quite yet. Here we are 5 years beyond, and it's getting there. And even in my last library in Texas, we were getting there, but it's still not quite to the volume because there's been a new pattern of learned behavior. And that's something that it provides a challenge, but it also provides a new opportunity for us to look at things differently and really try to engage with students. That's part of why I spoke to student government just last night in trying to engage them and invite them back to the library for the same reasons, that we want to find ways to scratch that itch or to make sure that they see themselves in the library and they see that as a vital partner in the work and the educational process for them.
Got about 90 seconds. One last question.
Sure.
If we have you back on the show a year from now, what would you like to be able to tell me that you've seen as a big success a year from today?
That I lost 20 pounds. Seriously, I'd like to see just more engagement. I really appreciate the friendliness that I've seen so far and everyone's eagerness to be involved, but I'd like to be able to point to greater successes, to be able to roll out a list of accomplishments and things that we've done and ways in which we've engaged that people either haven't seen in a while or are brand new to SEMO.
More engagement.
Exactly.
Paul, it's been a pleasure to visit with you. Thanks for being here today.
Thank you, sir.
All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll be joined by Dan Presson. You're watching Focus on Southeast, and we will be right back.
Losing the fear of looking foolish comes with age.
Who did you steal him from?
Losing your way in your own home doesn't. Confusion with time and place may be a sign of Alzheimer's.
Mom, are you okay? Yeah, I'm fine.
Early detection gives you and your loved one time to plan for the future. Learn the warning signs of Alzheimer's.
Welcome back to Focus on Southeast. Fostering business and workforce development and facilitating the process of innovation to enhance the regional economy is the daily work of the Economic and Workforce Development Team. Dan Presson leads the team, and he's here with me. Hey, Dan.
Hey, thank you so much for having me.
So for those who don't know, give us a little bit of background about your division.
Okay. The Division of Economic and Workforce Development was created by Dr. Carlos Vargas about 2.5 years ago. Really, his vision for this unit was to take all of the university's physical assets all throughout Southeast Missouri and in the Boot Heel and try to figure out the best way possible for the institution to positively impact workforce performance and economic development throughout all of Southeast Missouri. So what we have since done is we've started having conversations all throughout the coverage region of Southeast Missouri State University, learning what our employers want, figuring out what their employment needs are, and then finding those opportunities to upskill their employees to make sure that the future of Southeast Missouri's workforce is strong.
Because part of I know you talked about this before, we want to send out graduates, some who stay, but also some who go and get experience and come back. How's it going so far? I mean, it's 2.5 years you've been working on this. How's the work going?
It's going incredibly well. We've had these wonderful conversations with stakeholders all throughout the region trying to figure out what are the actual needs of their workforce. Now, a lot of times, this is not a workforce that directly interacts with classic university college courses. This is a workforce that needs simple trainings like personal finance training for manufacturers, taking employees that are working in a manufacturing setting and teaching them the basics of keeping their finances in order and in check. That was a need that one of our employers came to us with and said, we need our employees to have X, Y, and Z skill set. And so we created a training specifically for that company and their employees in order to help make sure that they're upskilling their workforce to their needs.
So when you talk to employers and you find out what they're needing, do you have conversations with the academic side of the house to try to say, we probably need to head down this path? I've heard from 5, 6, 7 employers who really need this. We're not doing this exactly. Do you kind of steer that a little bit?
Absolutely. Anytime I get feedback from a company in this region, I always share that feedback with faculty and other university leaders. It's really essential that as a state regional comprehensive public university that we listen to the companies in our region that are hiring our students. I've had a really incredible opportunity to not only be involved in the workforce training side as I am now, but also be directly involved with career services at Southeast. And I've seen where our students go after graduation. I see the skill sets that they build while they're here. And so what this unit is now working towards for the university and for the region is how do we also help not just that college graduate section of the population, but the rest of Southeast Missouri. Because as that regional service institution, how do we continue to utilize our campuses, our educational background to lift everybody up?
You mentioned career services. That leads me to the Career Expo. Is that twice a year that's held? And talk about that. And what
It
that
is.
does.
The Career Expo has become an incredible opportunity for students and companies throughout Southeast Missouri and throughout the state of Missouri, Southern Illinois. It is a very big, large event. Usually we top out around 140 to 150 employers that come to campus specifically to recruit SEMO talent, which is an amazing thing. And every student needs to remember that these companies are taking time out of their day specifically to recruit from SEMO. But these are companies from all over. We've got a company from Pensacola, Florida that routinely visits our campus just to recruit our construction management students. And so you've got these awesome events twice a year in the spring and in the fall. They each have their own unique set of employers that fit that recruiting timeline. And it's a great opportunity for students to meet 150 companies without ever leaving campus.
They do interviews sometimes on site that event, right?
Absolutely. They'll do on-site interviews. They'll do post-day interviews. We've had some employers that will set up little events after the career fair in order to make sure that they can stay connected with the students that they meet. And companies will then take this event as a catalyst in order to engage students on multiple different levels.
And we've talked about this before, but you have to remind the students if you're coming to that, dress nice because you might be interviewed while you're here, right?
Absolutely. I jokingly always tell students about a pledge of future employability where it's like, don't wad your clothes up and throw them in the corner of your closet. Make sure you make eye contact with important people. And at an event like a career fair or any professional style event that you're going to be in interacting with professionals in your industry, make sure that you look nice. Make sure you have an updated copy of your resume. Make sure that you're ready to talk about yourself and talk about yourself with a stranger. And those are skill sets that don't always come naturally, especially to Generation Z, which has always been able to find solace in a phone.
Yeah, can I just send them my resume and just
Exactly.
hit send and that's all I have to do?
I have the conversation of an employer's not always going to text you. So students need to make sure that they have a voicemail set up and they check it on their phone. So having a Career Expo on campus is an incredible opportunity for students to test their skill sets. How many times do you have one room where you can practice your introduction, at 270 different representatives? 150 different companies. This is a great opportunity without ever leaving our campus to test your skill set and also get employed.
That's great. Entrepreneurship is in your house. Talk about the Business Boot Camp. That sounds like an exciting opportunity for area businesses.
Yeah, the Small Business Development Center here at Southeast Missouri State University has a lot of really wonderful programming that they do all throughout the semester and throughout the summer in order to help regional entrepreneurs get their business off the ground. And so these business boot camps are 8-week boot camps that take place in the evening, and they're programs that will allow somebody that has an idea in order to flush that idea out, get that business plan started, and then really start figuring out the scope of work that needs to be done in order to launch a business. So it's a comprehensive program. It allows people to really go from that very atom of a concept all the way through to actually filing papers and starting a business.
Is there a good response to that program? A lot of folks sign up?
Yeah, there really is. Southeast Missouri is a very industrious region. We have a lot of history of really great entrepreneurs, and so there's an entrepreneurial vein that runs through a lot of people. And so every time we have a business boot camp or any of our other SBDC programs, there's always a really positive response, whether or not that event is in Kennett, Sykeston, Farmington, Cape Girardeau. That SBDC response is always really positive.
Are folks overwhelmed sometimes with the idea of starting a business? You have an idea and you think, well, this would be great. And maybe when you sit down and start going through it, you're like, wow, there's a lot more to this than I thought. I would imagine that's something that comes to light in many cases.
It's not a simple process, but it can be simplified as best as it can be. The SBDC has wonderful documentation already put together. The SBDC has all of that information put together that you could potentially need to gauge whether or not your idea is a viable idea. Plus, we have a director of the Small Business Development Center, Jacob Pallison, who will sit down with you and talk you through this concept and show you all of the online resources to see whether or not your business plan is viable. Also to see whether or not your business name has already been taken or not. There's a lot of those simple steps that the Small Business Development Center at Southeast Missouri State can really help make sure that you're taking.
Okay, you got to educate me here on Scrum Master Certification. What is it?
So this is an example of one of those workforce trainings that the region has not had access to, and we wanted to make sure that we could bring this training to Southeast Missouri. Scrum Master is a technical training specifically for people that are in a computer science or a project management field, and it allows for somebody to really game up themselves in how well they can plan out an IT project, how well they can execute an IT project. And this is the type of training that ordinarily people would have to travel to St. Louis or Memphis to. But here in Cape Girardeau, we're going to be hosting it at Southeast Missouri State. It's a face-to-face training. It's not an online training. And we're having a really good response because people want to be able to give themselves that next step up in a skill set, in a certification. And this Scrum Master Certification is just one of those steps.
So that's what that is. It's more of an IT kind of planning.
Where IT intersects with project management.
Which is a big deal right now.
Huge.
So is this one of those things you heard from an employer in the area or employers who said, this is something that we need to have around here?
This was actually one of those instances where we heard it from candidates. We heard candidates saying, I want this training, but I don't want to have to travel for it. And so we were very lucky to be able to bring it here to Southeast.
What are some other things that are on your radar in your office that you're kind of thinking about or looking at?
So there's a lot of interesting things that we're looking at all throughout Southeast Missouri. We're looking at how to bring different types of trainings to our Kennett campus that might impact the agriculture community or the steelmaking and steel manufacturing community. Looking at different trainings that we can offer in our in the Sykeston area. That's actually currently where we're running our personal finance courses.
A lot of potential there, right?
Excellent, incredible potential.
Sean Howard was here on our recent program and talking about the regional campuses, and there's a lot of potential, it seems to me, there, and this will feed right into that.
Exactly. There's loads of potential, especially all throughout Southeast Missouri. Whenever you look at this region's connection to agriculture and connectivity to other major metropolitan areas, we have a lot of great opportunities.
So let's talk about the job market and how's that looking. We've talked about this every time you've been on the show. What are things looking like now here in 2025?
So 2025 has been kind of a mixed bag so far. The end of 2024 was an interesting time because there was a hiring slowdown in some of the tech sectors. And so we've just kind of seen a sort of shift as there's been a change in presidential administration. We're really seeing a slowdown in hiring or companies that are interested in hosting H-1B visas. But overall, hiring in general remains strong. This is a very strong economy. There are companies out there that have really strong positions that they're searching for and that they're looking to fill. Since it is a strong economy, people feel relaxed and comfortable with retirements, and so that means that there's that next generation of talent that gets to come into the workforce. So overall, things are in a really solid state. There's a little bit of that softening, like I said earlier, in the tech sector.
Yeah.
But mostly, as long as somebody's willing to put in the work, and I always boil it down to, if you've got a really solid resume and if you've got really good interview skills, that's where you can put yourself out there and you have a better response to your applications. Resume plus interview equals job. And so
Simple equation, right?
simple equation, but it has to be a good resume. You have to follow it up with good interview skills, and that's how you actually get an offer.
So we got a couple of minutes here. I want to talk about enrollment. So Debbie Bilo was on the program talking about the enrollment task force and all the things they're doing. I'm guessing that's something you sort of watch too, especially as you're hearing from employers, the programs the university offers, enrollment of students at the university. How does that all look from your perspective?
Southeast Missouri and Cape Girardeau, we are very reliant on the graduates of this institution. And so we have to make sure that we are enrolling enough students in those areas that are of need to our employers, and that we are connecting those students up with those local and regional employers. So if a population in one certain area dips, well then our local employers feel it. And so enrollment, the connectivity between enrollment at the institution and that workforce development is really, really key. Because for instance, if you lose track in accounting, well, our employers are always needing accountants. And so it really does start to impact the local hiring market.
And that's something you keep an eye on.
Oh, it's something that you keep an eye on in the numbers, but also every day whenever somebody calls your office looking for talent, looking for a new graduate to hire, looking for an intern. And so you hear these anecdotes from across the region of companies that need a certain talent or need a certain skill set, and then how do we have that supply and demand for the region?
Yeah, it keeps you busy.
Well, and people always forget that a university is a supply and demand, and so our graduates have to go out into the world and get hired, and that's what gets them back, feeds back into the institution.
Yeah, absolutely. Dan, it's good talking with you. Thanks for being here as always.
Hey, thank you very much for having me.
And Focus on Southeast is a collaboration of KRCU Public Radio and the Department of Mass Media here at Southeast Missouri State University. And just a reminder that portions of these conversations will be broadcast on KRCU Public Radio. They'll also be available online at krcu.org and on the station's YouTube channel. From the Russ Center for Media, I'm Dan Woods. Thanks so much for watching. Be sure to tune in next time when we focus on Southeast.